I'm Chris Huber, and I'm with Korn Ferry. And Korn Ferry is a talent management consulting firm, and I focus on leadership development. So that means that I do a lot of training in person, I do one-on-one coaching, or I help organizations figure out how do they manage their talent better. What I think about most that helps me in consulting is using my past experience in dealing with challenges, dealing with times I had to figure out problems, dealing with times that I had to deal with difficult personalities, and how do I actually de-escalate emotions? How do I stop and slow down and think about what's really happening and what the client really needs so I can solve it? And consulting gives me a nice balance of that. I get to do the work, so I'm working with clients, I'm in front of the room. In my case, I'm facilitating programs, or I'm coaching somebody, or I'm in the room with a client helping them solve their issue. And so I'm doing it, and at the same time, I'm trying to create sales. I'm trying to create opportunities. So I get that excitement about the job that a lot of people get when they move up and get a sale, and the excitement on that. And I'm also kind of growing. What I wanted to do was always, how do I grow myself continuously? How do I help others grow? And in consulting, I get to do both of those. But it's not all fun, right? There's some challenges with the consulting. When I was a junior consultant in the firm, it was about delivering high quality work. When I was a middle, it was about how do I generate more business and deliver quality work. As I got to the senior levels, it's about how do I coordinate a lot of different projects with maybe 1, 2, or 3 clients, and how do I make sure that I'm giving them the best, whether that's me doing it, or whether that's bringing other people in who are experts, or whether that's developing the junior talent so that I eventually can do more and more delegating and less working. So just really prioritizing what is important, where do I add the most value. The other piece is, how do I deal with a lot of stress? And that's stress in myself, and I've learned that through my past career and past jobs where I've had to deal with stress. But I also know how to calm the situation down for others. And that's really important when we're dealing with a lot of fast things coming at you, different angles, different things, and also having a goal that then gets changed because now new things are popping in constantly. And that's a new skill that you don't really get in school, that you really have to learn once you get into the real world, if you will. First of all, it depends on what type of consulting you're going to go into. When you think about consulting in general, it really doesn't matter your degree or what kind of specific course you go to. Now, with that said, a graduate education is really important, because what it does is it allows your employer to see that you're able to think, you're able to problem solve, you're able to deal with a lot of different things coming at the same time, which we talked about is very important for this role. When you think about the specialty, so if you're going to go into consulting that's around strategy, you should have some business courses. An MBA is probably a good idea. If you're going to go into consulting like myself, it's leadership development. It's also, some people like to go into the deep assessments. When you go into deep assessments, having more of that IO, which is industrial organizational psychology, or a master's in that area, is helpful, but not required. So for me, I do a lot of coaching, I do a lot of leadership development. I decided to get a MBA because I needed to understand business. So you need to, if you're going to work with businesses, you should understand businesses. Whether it's in the private sector, the public sector, the government, understand that industry. And a lot of that you'll get during your work with the firm as you grow and learn. And so I really think that think about your education into what skills are you going to learn in that education, no matter what the field, okay? Then you apply that into the consulting in general, and then you use your different positions as you grow in the consulting field to start getting the specifics around whatever industry you're going to focus on, practice area of things of that nature. So that's what I would say is focus on what you've already learned in your graduate studies and how do you apply it. That's the biggest key. One is to really be able to reflect on what experiences have you had in the past, whether it's volunteer work or whether it's a job. And so, for example, for me, I was going into leadership development. I knew I had to deal with people and education. So guess what? I used some of the things in my past. Like I was a camp counselor. And I used that to say, how do I deal with a lot of people that had emotions, right? Because it was underprivileged kids. I had to deal with them for a week at a time. And that's a volunteer activity. But I took into that, all right, how do I deal with people's emotions? How do I deal with challenges? I was in retail for a while. So I used that retail experience of dealing with customers. Sometimes they were a little crazy, but guess what? Sometimes my clients get a little crazy because they're under pressure and they're under stress. And so I've used those skills in retail to help me when I'm dealing with clients. And by the way, one of the industries that I focus on is retail. So I can use my retail experience as an industry expert. So that's real helpful. And I will say that one of the interesting things is I totally took a sidetrack off and I did some work in litigation. And it was supposed to be a temporary job. But guess what? It wasn't. It lasted a long time. And I learned how to manage teams and I learned how to create systems and processes. That was not in my plan. In the big picture plan, I knew I wanted to do something with human resources. I knew I wanted to do something with business. I knew I wanted to do something in education. So while I was learning that, or while I was in that job, I learned how to think about processes. I learned how to solve problems. All of that, whether it was planned or not, I always had that view of what do I want to do? And I allowed myself to take opportunities. And while I was in that opportunity, maybe it wasn't the ideal job for me. Like the ideal job wasn't in litigation. My ideal job wasn't retail. But I took those experiences and I said, how is it going to help me? And then because I had the light of the tunnel of where I wanted to be, when opportunities came up, like to go into consulting or to get a certificate in human resource development, to learn the technical part of it, I took advantage of those. And, it helped me to at least be focused on where I wanted to go, but I didn't worry about taking jobs that weren't exactly in line with where I wanted to get to.